Unless you watch today's program, you'll never understand this morning's guest. Who is he? You'll meet him. Coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at Garden City Furniture on Highway 17 Business in Garden City. We're focused on the Understanding Corporation, and we're visiting with its co-founder, Larry Amick. Good morning, Larry.
Greg, sir. Good morning.
Great being with you again early on a Friday morning.
Good to be back.
That is so exciting to think about. So much that's happened over the course of when we were last together. The ICE Awards happened. Obviously, Understanding Corporation was the presenting sponsor there for the inaugural ICE Awards up at the House of Blues, which was tremendous, and even more recently and more exciting, the 13th Annual American Heart Ball, which Understanding Corporation was the presenting sponsor and helped raise $375,000 to fight heart disease and stroke. Thank you again for those incredible donations.
We were happy to do both. We thought nothing could be better than the ICE Awards, and you topped yourselves down here. The Myrtle Beach folks did in that heart ball. It was wonderful.
Wasn't it a great event?
Great event.
Almost 1,000 folks up there at the Embassy Suites Resorts, and to see again.
100,000 people were missing. I was amazed that they didn't all try to get in.
I know, that's right. That's right. The hotel was packed that night.
It was.
You know, of course, back in February, we talked about much of what's been happening with Understanding Corporation. Oftentimes, folks call it UC recently, and a lot is going on. For some of the viewers who may have missed your interview back in February, Larry, can you share with them just a little bit of what's happening with the company and what prompted you and to co-found it, and who you co-founded it with?
Well, for those who don't know, Understanding Corporation is a company that produces understanding. Its only product is understanding, and that's accomplished by aligning the reading and writing ability of people with the difficulty to read various texts and messages that are given to people. And the result of that is understanding, or better understanding. We never reach maximal understanding. The company, Dr. Lou Brown, University of North Carolina, professor in the business school at University of North Carolina, Greensboro, and I founded this over the last few years, and are just commercializing it in the last couple of months when it finally come to market.
Yes.
And we were delighted to find an active audience for it down here in this area, and appreciate the support we've had down here. The products that we provide are very simple and in their own way. They're not very expensive. In fact, they're negative expense as you determine either in the hiring process or later how well a person reads or writes. That's very easy to do now, and very well-established technology. And then the text analysis machinery, which is all software on your computer, to tell you exactly how difficult the things that you write or are trying to read are, in fact, how difficult they are.
And of course, you mentioned Dr. Lou Brown, who you co-founded the company with. You all go back a long way, Larry.
About 35, 40 years.
Is that right?
I was an officer in the Army, and Lou was in graduate school at the University of North Carolina when I came back from Vietnam time, and met him almost immediately, and we worked together. He was another soldier in my unit in reserves. I knew him there, and we knew him in graduate school, and we worked together then in several companies after that, and he's become a distinguished professor, and I've become a entrepreneur, I guess, and together we still work all along, and we're delighted to work together on this again.
Oh yeah, very definitely. And of course, you know, is this something that that viewers could tie into their lives, or is it strictly for big companies that can really get a lot out of this, Larry?
No, everyone can use it. Everyone who cares about communicating better, and individuals. Those who are watching this morning, you want your children and your grandchildren to have access to the product. You'd like to know how well they read, and how well they read at different increments as they go through school and college. Literacy, Greg, is the #1 determinant of a person's success in life.
Number one?
Number one. There's nothing else. It's not race, color, creed, or anything else. It's not even skills you might pick up along the way. The universal equalizer is the ability to read and write. In fact, the National Adult Literacy Survey, which is given every 10 years in the United States to people across all walks of life and work and professions, finds that a 15% increase in literacy is double lifetime earnings. So,
no. A 15% increase in literacy.
15%, 15% change anywhere on the line doubles your ability to earn money in the rest of your life. So a person who is literate at even a slightly more literate than another person is a person who, in the average, now it's always an average, you can have your uncle hire you in a high-paying job because he likes you. But if it's a real legitimate American job, a real job that's paying real money, then that rule holds fast across millions of people in the United States and everywhere in the world. In fact, literacy is the largest problem. If you read Tom Friedman's new book, The World is Flat, it's a popular book right now, and it's number 1 or 2 on the New York Times list again this week. The critical thing about world competition and economic competition, there are many people that are isolationists that say we shouldn't let our jobs get offshore, we should protect our goods, from being pounded by this, that, and the other nation that's underpaying their workforce, whatever. There's reasons for worrying about that and equal treatment of humans and whatever. But the equalizer, as Friedman points out in his book, is literacy. The United States is currently slumped over the last 50 years to 54th in world literacy.
No.
Yeah, we're extremely deficient in something that is the number one thing we should have more of. We have no excuse for that. We spend more money on education than anyone else. We spend more time on it. We talk about it more. We have No Child Left Behind. We have all these programs, these little bylines and whatever about it.
Right.
The sad fact is that we are slumping in that area. The average adult United States citizen, adult literacy is around between the 7th and 8th grade in measured, which we call a 745. In the UC vernacular, we measure things in numbers like that. And so one of the big problems and one of the things that everyone at home can think about, and everyone can come to the website, it's understandingcorporation.com. They can take a free analysis of any text they'd like to there. You can sample the product. You can buy one if you want one. They're less than $40 to have one for the year if you'd like to have the system, and we'll talk a little bit more about what it does and whatever. But it is important for everybody individually to have that understanding of their own ability, and to understand what their children and grandchildren are doing as well. So whether you've got a small company, a big company, or just a family, a church trying to communicate better with your
parishioners, absolutely.
A politician trying to communicate better with the electorate. All of those things would be a use.
That is fascinating, Larry. And of course, you talked about the breaking it down by numbers. Share with the viewers the significance of how the numbers work on the literacy side.
Well, every person reads or writes at a different level wherever you are, and it's literacy or reading and writing ability are learned skills. They're not like God-given aptitude like IQ. So a person with average IQ, average is 100. So if you look at IQ, the average IQ is exactly 100. That's the way that scale is set up. A person say, well, I'm not able to gain IQ, and that's correct. There are some little exercises and things where people have temporarily gained a few points, but you really are just typically the average of your parents.
That's interesting.
Is what people's IQ is, and so it's whatever it is. That's people are fixed there. But in literacy, you can gain literacy. You can work at it. You can read. You can learn words. Memory and IQ are not the same thing. Some people have great IQ but a poor memory. Other people have poor memory but the other way. But anyway, in achievement is what reading is, and so we measure that on a scale from 400, which is roughly the end of the 4th grade, to around 2,500, which is higher than you want to think about. And to test and see how much horsepower each person has in reading at any one time. Remember, it changes over time. As you read and read and read, you get better and better. get gray hair, you know more words if you can remember them. We measure that by giving an assessment that it calls for a person to read a paragraph and then fill in a blank of 4 multiple choice questions. It will ask you actually to fill in a word, testing your understanding of the words that are the 4 words and what you just read in the paragraph above. And so it gets harder and harder and harder as you move through the assessment, and finally you can't lift the weight anymore and you give up. It's not timed or anything. The only thing that you're required to do is not to have a dictionary or your uncle in there doing the test for you.
Good.
It's delivered over the computer, over the internet.
It's all done over the computer.
Sure. So if you want to go in and take one and have fun and see what it is, you can do that. Use your credit card and do one. But in the organizational way it's used, you would then be able in the application process when people are applying for a job or when you're placing people in a job, you'll be able to know which people can do which jobs.
Yes, very good point.
But that means that you know what the job requires. Now, most organizations, sadly today, do not know, A, what the applicant's horsepower might be in reading or writing. That's one unknown. And the other unknown, sadly, is the other half of the equation. They don't know what the job requires either. They have a kind of a feeling over 15, 20 years that it requires people that are kind of like this kind of person, but they actually misfire all the time in hiring, and that's why you see so many hirings and firings and people unhappy with their jobs and unable to perform well and leaving to another job. Over 75% of the U.S. workforce this year is looking to move to a different job.
Over 75%.
It's 3 out of every 4 people is looking for a new job. It's
That's
not like
terrible.
our Father's Day or our grandfather's day where everybody hung on to a job for a lifetime. It's a very mobile situation. And so the Monster.coms and the HotJobs.com and all the job markets, if you look at how many people are career builders, all these things are just full of millions of applications of people moving around. Some of them are moving because they're unhappy in the jobs they're in because they don't function well. And usually why they don't function well is they don't understand. They don't understand the job. They don't understand the directions they're given. They don't understand the procedures. They don't understand the service manuals, the training. All of those things are problems. They can all be aligned properly if you know the reading and writing ability of the person at the beginning, and secondly, what the job requires.
And understanding corporations' products can really help bridge this gap.
That's all we do.
Wow, Larry, that's
You might think it's a
gigantic.
lot, but that's all we do.
No, I mean that's.
We don't provide any other products. We don't have beach chairs. By the way, early in the morning, I was going to say I rented one of the beds so I can sleep in a minute.
Garden City Furniture.
It's a great-looking place.
Is incredible. Have you walked through here? I mean, this thing goes on forever.
I'm just trying to keep my wife from coming in.
That's
here.
right. We'll get Kay up
Hope
here.
she doesn't see the show.
That's right. We'll get her up here. You know, it is amazing to think about that. You say that's all we do, and of course you highlight we don't sell, or the company doesn't sell widgets. It's clearly got a product, albeit it's since it's not a widget, since someone can't touch and hold it, they think, what the heck am I buying?
Well, what you're buying is there are two definite things we do. One is we test people. We assess people's literacy.
And you've been assessed, Larry.
Oh,
you
sure,
took,
many
of course,
times.
Right, taking the test.
Keep doing it, hoping I'll get better.
Get a little better.
No, but I don't. No, you always are the same. By the way, those assessments come out within 1 or 2% of accurate every time, given that the person is really trying.
Right.
The only thing you can do is worse than you should have done because you didn't try. The other side of our business assesses text. And that's all done with a computer as well, and it runs online, so you can get it on the internet with a password. You don't have to have any particular computer. You can do it from any computer in the world.
Really?
If you've got your password and can remember that password. And then secondly, you can have it loaded on your computer so you can use it when you're offline.
Right,
so a person can use it at a time. That product costs about $35 a year to have the rights to that. It also runs in your email. So when you're getting an email or you're sending an email, you can see how difficult that email is for the person that's receiving it, or for you if you're receiving it, to understand it. So the readability is always there in your subject line.
So it is very important for folks to do the first part, to do the comprehension piece, to gauge what their, you said, understanding value level is.
That's correct.
So that they know that they need to either receive things at that level or not.
Or the third alternative is not to understand them, which is always an unfortunate situation. Most of the world's problems are keyed on great misunderstandings. actually have a list of the 10 biggest misunderstandings in world history, but there's a lot of them that have gone on, and we don't even want to get into the history course today. But most things are just people's failure to communicate. Now, some of that is a function of language, too.
Right.
And so the TextMaster product, the product that handles text readability,
right,
also translates into 12 languages back and forth from English.
Is that right?
So
that's all included as part of...
Oh, it's all part of the package.
Right.
It's just a flick of the wrist. You can translate it to Italian or Spanish or anything you would like a paragraph to be translated or the whole document to be translated into. This is important when you're communicating with people that don't speak English, of course.
Right, of course.
And, of course, the main thrust of the product is to help people who don't speak English at the level other people are writing English, so that we can all tone down or modify our writing so that our audience can understand. It's interesting that Harry Potter series, which everybody is generally familiar with, the Harry Potter series, that series is written at around 900 to 925. Every page. Ms. Rowling has become a billionaire, richer than the Queen, some people say, by being able to write consistently using one of these engines, of course, to monitor and write everything at that level. The USA Today, to people that are watching, is written at around 1050. The Wall Street Journal is at 1440.
So that would mean to understand it on a regular basis, to have a full understanding, you'd probably have to have a little bit of college education.
Today you would, because college education is not a good gauge of a person's literacy anymore. We know from testing several hundred college graduates, and I won't even name the colleges we've tested, but good ones, the average college graduate is nowhere near 1,600, which would be what the numbers would call for a model college graduate to be a 1,600 reader. Most they range from 750 at the senior level to maybe as much as 1,450. You rarely see a 1,600 reader at the college level. So the USA Today is written comfortably at around the 10th grade level. The Wall Street Journal is written about the second, third year in college level, and is excruciating for some people, boring and of no interest to some. Economist magazine is north of that, and it goes on up from there. So you got a lot of things that are difficult to read. We believe, Greg, that it's some professions or some industries require people to actually be measured this way to do their jobs. We can use a couple simple examples.
Yeah, please.
Airline pilots would have to be able to fly airplanes at a certain level of proficiency. They'd have to be able to see well. They'd have several things that you would measure before you let them be employed as a pilot for your airline. My brother was a musician, a professional musician for 35 years, played the principal horn with the North Carolina Symphony. They had to be sure that he could play the French horn before they'd let him be in the symphony. And they'd have to know exactly how well he played the French horn. They'd test him for that. A baseball pitcher trying out in Florida right this month would have to be able to pitch the ball pretty fast and accurately to be brought on board as a baseball pitcher. It's amazing to me, and these are simple examples, and they may seem foolish, but if you think about American industry or government hiring people when the most important criterion is how well they read and write and can be trained and can communicate with each other and with their customers and with the taxpayers and with everyone else, there's almost no interest given by anybody in doing this, what we do. Now, that's, I think, because it's never been done before.
It's never been done before.
We have patents pending on the processes and whatever. But that doesn't mean that everybody can't do it now, and so we're hoping everyone will say, well, gee, that should have been done before. Well, we wish we were doing that.
That is tough to break ground, Larry, isn't it? It really is tough to get out into the market as the first out.
That's why being on the show is good for us, and we hope more people would take an interest in it.
Well, of course, Carolina People covers such a broad range, oftentimes community service projects or community individuals here, but this impacting literacy in America is so important. Understanding corporation products are so critical. Albeit at the same time, how can someone use UC products to land a job? How can it help them?
Well, first of all, they should let the employer know, because he's normally not thinking about it, that the most important thing I bring to the table to distinguish my application from the hundreds of other people trying to get this job is that I am extremely literate. or I am literate at whatever level I am.
Right.
It doesn't have to be extremely literate, but I know what I am. I know that I can write and read at these levels, and to know that, I've gone to take a test, and that is my score right there, and it can be certified by the company who gave me that test. In other words, it's not just something I made up.
Right.
It's another qualification that's far more important than where you went to college and what you studied and how many years you've done this and that.
Wow.
If to a knowing employer, it is the most critical variable in making a decision about hiring people. I would not hire. I've hired thousands of people. I wouldn't hire anyone anymore without knowing that. That's almost like a doctor giving you a physical without knowing your blood pressure, which years ago they didn't know. But once they found out that the systolic and diastolic pressures are critical, having a blood pressure, even a simple medical, without having that happen to you is almost unthinkable now. It would be unthinkable in the future, I would believe, for people to be hired without knowing if they fit into these jobs they're going to have to do.
Right, right.
And to know that, you need to know what does that job require in terms of readability skills. And so the two-sided market is what we...
This is critical, Larry, and the impact that it could have for businesses and will have for businesses that adopt UC products and, of course, recognize a UV scale and really put it to work.
We're hoping to make it a world standard, and it'll be done in other languages as well. But presently, we're just getting our start with 50 or 100 initial customers, corporations typically, governments, other groups. We want to point out, too, the cost of making a mistake, in hiring or placement.
Yes.
And most people who are in the hiring business know how painful it is when you finally have to fire someone, the struggles you go through with the EEOC and government agencies and lawsuits and this and that and whatever. People don't like to be fired sometimes. Others know, well, I wasn't good for that, and they just leave peacefully. Either way, the cost of that is, if you believe ADP's numbers, when the big payroll processing company says it's 1.5 times annual wages is what it costs to have a mishire. Workforce Management Magazine's number is 2.4 times annual wages. So it's somewhere in between there. You can take a high or low number. Any of those numbers are catastrophic to a company, but the most catastrophic number of all is if the person is not fired and they stay on and they continue to not sell your furniture here, or offend your customers so they never come back, or write letters in response to a customer's complaint or question that is so fraught with errors that the customer will never even write or see your company again and will tell stories about you at every cocktail party for 25 years. Okay. So these are the people who stay and can't be fired that are far more dangerous than the cost of firing and rehiring someone. But training costs, retraining again costs, firing and hiring, all of that just shows you, it's just a tip of the iceberg of the problem of people frustrated and unhappy in their jobs, unable to perform like they'd like to perform, and it's all because typically instructions are not written in a way that they can understand them, because nobody understands what level they can understand things at. And so that's what we're about.
That is tremendous, Larry, when you think about the practical nature of that and how critical this could be. If it was a $50,000 a year hire, even if you use the lower figures there, did you say manpower or the group, if you use the $75,000 hit for the 1.5 times annual wages, and that's just a basic amount, that could be, as opposed to spending $75 for the lit master as well as the text master, and to be able to utilize that is incredible. It's
a value, and the more you buy, the cheaper they get, like anything. But we're happy to make it available. Most of the people, we give them several of them free just to test it in their company. You don't have to take our word for it. You can have them free. And so we have all kinds of introductory offers going on right now, and not to commercialize it, I think the importance of it is the import it will have for America in terms of its competitiveness, because literacy is the thing. When the new flat world fully forms in the next 50 years, we're only going to have our own wits to compete with, and competing with your wits is only good since your native intelligence level is about the same as any other human on Earth. The IQ is going to be the same. Our average is going to be what it is. 100 is the average. This is not Lake Wobegon. some of the kids are under average. In Lake Wobegon, Garrison always tells you that, and the kids are all a little above average. Well, that's not true. There is an average, and America's average, and India's average, and China's average. A lot more people in China, and we all know that the differentiator is going to be communications and our ability to do that well, and that's what we should do, and we hope we can improve that.
Those are tremendous words. Larry, thank you so much for being with us this morning. I'm sorry the time has passed away.
It flew by.
Stay tuned for more Carolina People with Larry Amick coming up next. The phone number is simple. You got to take the time to write it down. It ties in with that key phrase, with understanding everything is possible. With understanding everything is possible. For many of our viewers, it's a long-distance call, but it's worth taking the time. 919-949-4822. The website's even easier than that, understandingcorporation.com. It's got tremendous, invaluable information on there. You need to take the time. I know it's the end of the week, but you need to take the time to check this site out. It's got solutions. It's got solutions on there. With understanding everything is possible. It's got partners on there. It's got great information about the company. It's got great information about these products. You heard Larry talk about it. He wants to help make a difference. He's making a difference every day. Take the time to visit understandingcorporation.com or pick up your phone and dial 919-949-4822. You can make a difference in literacy in America.